I don't know that everyone believed in my idea that I was going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And I can see why people could be skeptical about it, and I can see why, oh, you're going to be a successful person in the music industry. And this is a conversation that I'm having with people in 1991, 1992, It's like I could see why it seemed far-fetched, because no one, I don't think a lot of people knew people who were able to do that. And I think my purpose to speaking to them also was just to tell them to support each other. We need each other more than we even recognize.
We live sometimes in a very competitive, people feel, competitive and competition. And I feel like everything you were just saying is like, you need to unite and like help each other and not worry about the next man advancing beyond you, that type of thing. Cause I feel like that can happen in today's climate where people are like looking at the amount of followers, like say you're a new artist, you're looking at somebody else's followers, you know what I mean? And it turns it more into a competition than people helping each other.
This is what I'll say. I think competition is healthy. There's no part of me that doesn't think competition is healthy. But I know that there's something to be said about running your own race. And when you're competing with people, you're not necessarily running your race. There's this story about the horse Secretariat. Secretariat ran the Triple Crown or whatever of horse races. The first two races, I think she won each race by 2 lengths, right?
Yeah.
But the third race, Secretariat won by 31 lengths, night and day from 1.5 to 2 to 31.
So what do they attribute that to?
They say this, and this is the reason I'm saying this, because it's very much about competition and running your own race. One of my mentors told me the story. I knew nothing about it. The guy's name is Michael Klein. Michael Klein, he used to own the San Diego Chargers, and he gave me this gem. He said that the jockey said at this race, he just let the horse run. He said the previous races, he was keeping pace, waiting to break 3. In the third race, he just let the horse run from the gate.
That's
he never
tight.
paced at all. And so at that moment, you're realizing that success is in you. Just run your race. It's your race. Like, the beauty of it all is running your race. It's not necessarily competing against the man next to you. And that's what I've realized in life.
That's beautiful, man.
It's my race to run. And I don't look at this industry or any of the industries that I've been blessed to be in and necessarily say I'm trying to keep mark with what they're doing in the industry itself. I have tried to place marks in my life where I want to have a reputation that is of a gold standard, like a Coca-Cola or Apple or so-and-so, where these companies are really functioning and delivering product to the market in a stellar way from what I can see. There is something consistently happening that people are buying into and continuing to buy into.
I'm all about that, Corey. I'm all about that. But I don't want to move on too fast from the point you were just making, because we were just going somewhere dope right there. So like this podcast, I don't know if you know this or not, is all about people kind of on the come up. You know what I mean? I always find that super interesting. We all love the underdog story. Am I right? And I feel like what doesn't help the underdog story is when people keep their hardships and challenges on their way to breaking through a secret. They try to sanitize it. Like, man, that shit's messy. So one of the greatest places to start in these interviews is like, yo, you've accomplished so much in your career. Let's throw it back to when Corey had to struggle a bit and hit closed doors, instead of so many open doors. Probably right now it's easier.
I don't want to come across arrogant. It seems easier. I make it seem easy, but it's all still hard. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's brain capacity. It's perseverance. Like, that part does not go away. So don't ever get it twisted. And I'm going to address the question for real, but please make sure your listeners know you will always be challenged, and you will always have to persevere, and you always have to plan. You always have to be persistent. These things will never go away.
No matter what level of success one reaches, right?
There's always something new. There's always, you challenge yourself. That's why you're doing it. So you have to continue to push yourself. Just like if you wake up and want to run a race, or you want to wake up and jog, you want to wake up and go to the gym. This is perseverance. You have to do it. Because I think part of human nature would, if you didn't have that in you, you just chill. Why would you? Right? So There's always a challenge, at least for me. I can speak to how I function. I had looked around and I think I had like $3,000 to $5,000 left to my name. I was living at Ford Factory Apartments in Atlanta, and $3,000 to $5,000, not knowing where your next check was going to be coming. I went and got a job.
9 to 5er, you're saying, right?
A little bit slicker. Okay. I got a job at a skate shop.
Okay. Okay.
Skate Escape. I got a job at Skate Escape in Atlanta, Georgia, by Piedmont Park.
Okay. And was that done like there was strategically, yeah.
It was some strategy there because it was off the music path, and I didn't want to be a guy that was like, I have to work here, and I needed the freedom that working at a skate shop, putting decks together, selling rollerblades, and renting roller skates with renting rollerblades to the park could afford.
Totally.
Yeah. I could kind of I could make my own schedule. And I cut myself a deal with them where I was probably one of the only people that were getting a percentage of the skates that I sold. Went in and I hustled that.
I was like, that's a good hustle, Corey.
Yeah, I hustled that. Lil Jon had got a job there, and Baby had a job there too. So me, Lil Jon, Baby all worked at Skate Escape.
You actually worked at the skate shop with Lil Jon? That's pretty wild, man.
I've known Lil Jon since I was 17. Since my freshman year in college, I've known Jon.
That's crazy, man.
And I managed Jon at one point in my life too. My artist Soup had been working there and hanging out with this kid Ronnie, and Soup was like, and I was talking to Soup because once again, these kids are only like 2-3 years younger than me, so we're all living life in a very Atlanta 90s way. You know what I mean? Yeah. We all hang out. Like, it's just, but like, this is my manager.
Y'all were
your manager and you could be interchangeable as far as looks go at that moment. I needed to make a change, and Soup was just like, yo, why don't you come work over here? It'd be easy. Like, and we could hang out, and he wanted to just hang out with me. It was like, we could hang out. We'd be selling skates. It'd be so cool. And I was like, I wasn't sure. But then I went, and they told me no. Like, they're like, your resume, like, you're too qualified for this job. And I said to them that, hey, I asked them, I said, how much do you make selling skates at any given day? What's a good day? And they told me a number. And I said, if you let me work here, I'll sell that amount at least. And I sold more than that. It allowed me for 9 months. I think I was there for 9 months to be able to not worry about food and things like that. And then I had extra money coming in to take care of, and I could budget accordingly. And my diet for that 9 months became corn nuts, pizza, and Snapple.
And we're not talking about like quality mom and pop pizza. We're talking about like, Little Caesars or something like that. Just like really roughing it, right?
Mellow Mushroom. Mellow Mushroom was the pizza spot in Atlanta that we were getting pizza.
Shout out to Mellow Mushroom.
Shout out to Mellow Mushroom. Shout out to Skate Escape. Shout out to Soup. It gave me enough of a break to figure some things out financially. And then eventually I went back to New York.
It was expensive then, I assume, right? I mean, it's a very expensive place now, but it's always been expensive, right?
Yeah, but New Yorkers don't know expensive. Just like New Yorkers don't realize that there's so much space other places.
That makes sense. Because like a fish not knowing it's in water, you're just there.
You don't realize it until you actually move into some other place, or you're trying to purchase something somewhere else. You're like, wow, like I can get all this for this. I mean, like,
what's funny about New Yorkers, bro? I gotta tell you, which is fun. It's like y'all are like, you're caring people. Like, I feel like there's a lot of good people in New York, but it's funny, like it's with an edge. And what I mean by that is I remember being in New York and like this dude held the door open for me, and like I didn't walk through the door fast enough, and he yelled at me. He's like, come on. Like, he's doing me a nice favor, but then he's yelling at me at the same time. So just a funny New York story.
We're moving. New Yorkers don't know the idea of sitting still too much. Not a real New Yorker. And New Yorkers don't live in a space of let me look around. I can tell you that we don't look up much.
I heard you in an interview talk about, you guys have the Yonder case at some of the shows you guys were doing, put the phone away and be in the moment. You're an advocate for being in the moment, but like New Yorkers aren't in the moment a lot too, right? Because you're just trying to get from one thing to the next. So how do you balance that out?
We are there. We spend more time transitioning through moments.
Okay.
But we are in moments, but we may not bask at the beauty of the Empire State Building. We may not bask at the beauty of the architecture around. We may not look at the Statue of Liberty on a regular basis, but for the most part, when you're born there, you've done it, you've seen it, you've taken it in, and it's part of your psyche. I don't bask in, oh man, like these jeans are so good, because I already have them. You see what I'm saying? Like the concrete jungle itself is our clothing. It's us. Oof. Like there's no other place.
That's dope.
Yeah, it is. It's in our DNA. Trust me, because there's no other place where you walk the way we walk, you travel the way we travel. We're intertwined. That's why it's one of the best metro systems. You see what I'm saying? It's one of the best cities in the world where you can get anything. There's nothing you cannot get in New York City. Yeah. There's not a person in the street that can't tell you something about something you're looking for. You can stop someone in New York City on a dime, and at least 1 out of the 5 is going to be able to tell you exactly where to get what you're looking for.
And you don't have that in a lot of other places.
Hell no. And mind you, I've been in LA for 6 going to 7 years, right? This October. And I'll say that it's the lifestyle that I live here is I appreciate way different. I'm able to, I appreciate the sun in ways that I didn't appreciate in New York. I appreciate the fact that I don't have to sludge through winter.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
I really do appreciate that. I appreciate the ability to go take a drive, you know, up to PCH or something. You know what I mean? Like,
but you missed that you know, that hustle thing that you were just describing about New York. Do you miss that at all here?
Once again, the hustle's on me. I hustle here. I hustle here, and I honestly, I think I hustle circles around a lot of people here.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but to use a cliche, and once again, it is a cliche, so people don't take offense to it. But people are known to say here pre-COVID, you know, oh, let's have lunch. Oh, let's go have a coffee. I don't waste my time with half of that stuff. Like, what are we doing? Are we doing business or are we not? Like,
right. All right. So I heard a New Yorker tell me that people here have a meeting about having a meeting. They don't just have the meeting. Yeah. You agree with that? Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Like all these sit downs for, it's like, it's a lot of wasted time. Like I'm cutting to the chase. Like, what are we trying to get this cracking? Because I can hang out with you after that. We can sit and have some drinks. We can sit but I want to know, like, I cut to it. Like I'm rapid for deals. I don't give myself the privilege or ability to not move quickly because I don't want to forget something. So I've trained myself. So if you're like, hey man, we should talk about, you know, getting a new microphone. I'm like, cool. And I'm going to immediately pick up my phone and start calling the microphone people. You see what I'm saying? I'm calling Shure immediately, at least to leave a message with Corey Lutz so that he knows to at least call me back so that I'm like, so I tossed it somewhere where at least it can snap back in the midst of me working.
You got the ball out of your court. You're going to at least do that. The ball will not be in your court.
It could still be in my court to have to throw again, but at least I shot it out there. Yeah. And the law of averages is probably Corey Lutz is going to hit me, and I'm using Corey Lutz for sure, which is going to be like, why is use my name on this thing? But like he's going to call me back at least to be like, hey, you called me. You see what I'm saying? Because I have enough of rapport. My 30 plus years in this game, most people, at least I would say high 95% are going to know I'm not calling to shoot the shit. Calling like with purpose.
Now, you said something else, Corey, about, you know, you called yourself like you felt like Forrest Gump at times because, you found yourself in the right time at like the right place. I thought that was a very interesting comment. You started out in music and then you found your way into the comedy space or the film space eventually when you met Dave Chappelle. Let's just talk about, you know, that chance encounter. Was it a chance encounter? Like, sticking with the Forrest Gump theme?
100%. Everything has been that. There's no part of my life that has not been a chance encounter because I legitimately was in Ohio at Kenyon College doing a concert with De La Soul, who I managed at the time, and Kweli, who I managed at the time. And so Kweli and De La had a show, and I would do that thing where, like, if a college or someone was booking De La, I would either put Mos and Kweli as an opening slot because I knew there was a budget there.
That makes sense, yeah.
Or if someone didn't have enough money to pay for De La and it was still a decent amount, I would say, hey, well, I got another group or I got another artist that you could, have.
Easy peasy, yeah.
I mean, you can't plan for it because I used to stand in Monitor World. Well, I still do for a lot of shows, but I usually now I'm at front of house because back then, we only travel with front of house engineers. Mm-hmm. So that's the person that sits at the front of the boards, making sure what the audience hears is good. But the person on the side of the stage has to make sure what the artist is hearing is a certain way. And we didn't travel with that guy. So my job used to be on tour for the first 3 songs after, when the artist gets on stage. We would do sound check, but the first 3 songs, Maceo from De La and I had signals that to get the sound right on stage, because sound guys would mix up stuff and it never snap back, or they didn't have digital boards and it wasn't always dialed in. So I would work on highs.
Most of the time shit would go wrong basically, right? And you learned you got to correct it.
So I spent a lot of time on the side of the stage. And so I'm standing on the side of the stage at that moment, and Dave taps me on my shoulder and asked if he could watch the show from the side of the stage. To me, he was Achu from Robin Hood Men in Tights. That's what I knew.
Yeah.
And so at that point I was like, sure, and from that moment, he watched the show, he enjoyed the show. And then later on, I think we exchanged numbers after the show. He asked what we were doing, and we decided to go to this kid's house on campus, and he had like a kegger. He had a keg party. And so at this kid's keg party was De La Soul, Kweli, and Dave Chappelle. We all hung out. Dave called me like, where you at? I gave him the address, and I was in the kitchen sitting on this kid's counter, drinking a beer, like in a solo cup. And Dave walked in, and then we all just started hanging, talking shit, having a good time. And that was the introduction of him and my crew. And then from that point, we became friends and we stayed in touch, but then we really became intertwined. Like the ball that has never been unraveled was outside of Electric Lady, where he was on his way to the Comedy Cellar and I was standing outside Electric Lady. And that day we spent a full day together. It was like him coming into the studio, meeting the Roots and Common and D'Angelo and all these kids that were at the studio that time working. Eric, I think everyone was at the studio just working on projects at Electric Lady. Mos and Quad and High Tech was there. And then, like later on that afternoon or that evening, I went with him, left our studio session. Everyone else kept recording, left our studio session, went with him around the corner, up the block, make a right, around the corner, went to the Comedy Cellar, which was like 2 or 3 blocks over. Walked in, and the first person that I saw there was Jerry Seinfeld, which he knew. And he was like, "What's up, Jerry?" And I was just like, "Yo, this is sitting to the left at a table." And it was just like, it was a awakening, of a world. And like, it was an introduction to a world that I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about comedy on that level. I've watched some comedy specials. I listened to some comedy albums, but if it wasn't Eddie Murphy or Richard Pryor, I didn't know comedians like that. I knew them to be in movies, but I didn't watch stand-up like that.
When you spent that evening there with Dave, you watched him go on stage. I assume, he did his thing. Were you just sold on the comedy world and in a new way post that night?
No, I wasn't sold on the comedy world. If anything, I was confused at how these guys were making any money.
That's an honest answer. Yeah.
Because my brain is so wired to business, and my brain was wired to touring and the venues and the sizes of the venues that I had my artists playing. And I looked at this spot as where he was playing in my mind, because I didn't understand it yet, but I understand it now, fully. That was his studio. That's not his performance venue. It's his place where he's working out his set. I'm looking at it as this is where comedians perform, because I'm calculating how much could each person be paying. Like, it just didn't.
So could I use the analogy, Corey, like an artist or a comedian taking their material to these little places is almost like the plane getting checked while it's on the ground and it's not in the air. Like, you want to know that your routine and your set works before you're taking it to bigger stages, so you don't bomb on bigger stages. Is that it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're small venues, but they're very, very, very important to the craft. The specials you see have been tried out in smaller markets and to smaller people, or even big markets and smaller audiences. It's just a thing. To answer the question, my initial response was, it was cool looking at these people go on stage, and I found a lot of the shit funny. I was just like, oh my God, like just watching some of these people, I was just like, their ability to riff, was great. I learned a lot very quickly, and I became very much entrenched in learning who was who and what was what. But more so, I was blessed to have a friendship with someone who saw my talent, who believed in me in a way that I didn't necessarily think of myself.
So let's talk about that. When did it shift then to, you guys made it a little more official than just the friendship? You started helping him out on business stuff.
It was a phone call. Then I think we met in person. It was about, we're going to do a TV show. And, and Dave had explained to me what my role was going to be.
Basically be a producer, right?
Yeah, I was going to book all the music acts for the show and help book talent.
I heard you say that no big artist would want to come on, like, you know, the Christina Aguileras. Weren't you guys trying to get that at first?
So Neil and Dave were running the show.
Neil Brennan, for those that don't know.
They would come back and we all had our task and our jobs. And my job was, hey, who's going to be our music guest? Can you reach out to Meth and Red to do this segment? And so I'm trying to get these answers back. Dave is my friend, and like we have such a genuinely pure friendship. I'd never looked at it as a business partnership until later. I'm like, okay, but it's like, here's my friend asking me to do something. That's really how I looked at it. And I don't believe in failing my friends. I remember one meeting, they had said they wanted two very big artists that they wanted. So their office is on 56th Street between 8th and 9th Avenue. And so my office is on 56th Street behind Carnegie Hall between 5th and 6th. So I would leave there, walk up the block, and I would start making phone calls along the way. And I'm calling people's publicists because everyone's like, that's the way to go. Publicists are going to put them on. And I'm getting these, I'll get back to you, or these, not really sure. Like, can you explain the show to me more? Like, no one's getting that this guy is about to have this show. It's like, it's the Chappelle show. And then Dave was like, our pitch should be, tell the artist, it's not about their single. What about the song that they always wanted to do that the label really wasn't supporting? What about a B-side? Let's have those songs be our songs for our show. I was all in with that idea. And I'm like, this is great. But I'm getting no's. I'm getting flat out no's, or I'll get back to you, and it's just not working. By the second or third time I'm showing up in the meeting without any real updates, I'm looking like the loser of the crew at this point. There's no real updates. I'm like, no one's saying yes. Dave pulled me to the side and he was like, yo, let's just book our crew, book your friends, book the people we know. And I remember asking him specifically, I was like, are they going to be okay with this? He was just like, yeah, man, it's my show. You know what I mean? But once again, I'm new to this concept. We're at Comedy Central. I'm like, I'm thinking through this thing. And the first act that we did was Mos. We did Mos up in Harlem by my old brownstone. It was a game changer.
Did you guys feel that what you were doing was kind of groundbreaking? Because I was watching that show at the time. I'm like, man, this feels groundbreaking. These artists that they're having come on. The music was such a key part of the whole vibe of the show.
We were beyond groundbreaking because when you think about that episode with Mos, carpool karaoke, I don't care what anyone says, that's what we did. That look that they have is Dave in the car with Mos. We were moving culture. And I did De La, then Quad, then I did Black Star, then I did Dead Prez, and it just all started flowing because it was like, here are my friends. I managed literally the first 4 acts that we did. So my first 4 shows, I booked myself. I'm calling myself, yeah, we're good. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, do you want your artist in the show? Yeah, I'll take it. What time? You know what I mean? Like, it was like literally one thing. But afterwards, I had tipped it. It's like, when you make your first shot playing basketball, you score your first touchdown, you make that first, like, it's these things, they kind of teach you something. Or if you're boxing and you get hit for the first time, you know what I mean? And you get back up. So then I understood what I was dealing with. I understood how great this thing was that we were doing, and that I now had a lot more belief in myself to say, no, I know what this is and I know who needs to be here, versus looking at these people who had no clue what it should be and even trying to chase down things that they wanted.
Beautiful story. When Dave walked away from the show, did you get a call out of the blue? Like, how did that shake out? Were you caught off guard, or did you have a discussion before that happened?
No discussion before, but I got a phone call from him literally the day after. We talked like the next day. And we had a very private conversation about what was going on. And, I had inklings to that. In my mind, I feel like we were pushed into that scenario. I don't think he ever really wanted to do season 3 or 4, but he agreed to it. I mean, but, man, he's my friend.
Yeah.
And so what I take away from that moment in time is I wish that everyone could have been a better friend to Dave. Like, my job was to be there to support my friend, and I wasn't going to leave my friend's side. That's it. There's nothing else to be said or discussed at that manner. Hook or crook, I'm in with you. And I hate to use this analogy because it's going to sound a little like Neanderthal-esque, but it's like, if my friends are in a fight, I'm not necessarily walking around asking the questions. I'm like, okay, we're fighting, and then I'll ask about the fight later. That's just how I was raised. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not like, hey, what's going on? Like, obviously something's happening that, and I'm on this team. You see what I'm saying? So I can't stand and watch this. You see what I'm saying? I got to participate and figure out what it was later. You see what I'm saying? Like, and so I don't care about Comedy Central. Like, no, it's Dave. Like, I'm like, so what are we doing? Okay, cool. Because I'm here with him. You know what I'm saying? He brought me here. Like, it ain't about me. You know
For
what
sure.
I mean? And, you know, one thing he told me, which also made me see my life in another way. And he said, you know, and I'm paraphrasing on purpose. Okay. But the thing was that I had another job outside of that job. See, I was, you know, I had my own company. I was managing artists in the music space and making a living.
That wasn't your sole thing, right?
So when Chappelle's show went away, my bank account had less that money in it, but that wasn't the thing that was filling my bank account. You see what I'm saying? So I didn't have that type of knee-jerk reaction. Like, oh, like it's over. Like, what do we do? Like, you know what I'm saying? So I never pressured him, which I think was beneficial to our relationship across the board. It was never about, hey, so what are we doing next? I was back to hanging out with my friend.
That's such a great point, Corey, because I think about, you know, I watched the Amy Winehouse documentary not long ago. You've seen that, right, Amy?
Yeah, I know.
And they talk about how, man, like her headspace, she needed the reset, man, probably in the way that, you know, Dave needed to take a reset, you know, but then the people around Amy it was like what you said, like that was their cash cow. I feel like they didn't want her to have that rest.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, first time I met Amy Winehouse was outside of Deal Real in London, you know? And I will always be a fan. I will always be forever saddened that she was not able to figure it out. You know?
Do you feel like there's some truth to what I just said, though? Because
I'm going to tell you.
Oh, we're getting there. Okay.
Getting right there. Yeah. The thing that we have to remember is that it's difficult to have someone represent you that needs you to make an income for them to survive. And to your earlier question about when Y'all So Stupid got dropped and what I had to figure out, which I don't know if I answered, but I'm going to answer with this because it comes kind of full circle, even with Dave, with Amy. It's like I learned early on when I was 19, 20 years old, at that moment, I needed to be able to have an income that was solely based on my talents, not based on someone else's talents, because that would lead me to making decisions on their behalf to pay my bills, or pushing them into making decisions that were not beneficial for them, that may solely be beneficial to me wanting to be able to survive.
Completely.
And so I never wanted to be there. So I figured it out. I had figured out that this myself was a commodity, that there's something here that I can get paid for and that I should be getting paid for outside of De La Soul, outside of Mos Def, Kweli, Reese, Lil Jon, David Banner, Vince Staples, Dave Chappelle. I need to have a brand. Blacksmith has to be something that someone's willing to pay me for because of I'm credible, I'm a creative, I'm reliable, I'm all these things that my clients believe in. I have to find a way to build this so it's structured and functional. And I was able to do that. And so I warn people, I warn them, always look around you. And if your persons that you're working with, the persons or person that you're working with completely need, not want, but need your income to survive, what happens when you don't want to do this anymore? What happens when you want to take a break? What happens to that person? It's a bad position to put yourself in.
Your job is to advise on what's best for the client. And if you're in that setup, you can't possibly advise, right, on what's best for the client because you're too much in that equation, Corey. Great point right now. Russell Simmons says, a good giver is a good getter. Have you heard him say that before?
No,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard that one, but I believe you have to give to receive.
Let's go more into that, because I feel like a lot of people, you got to look out for number one, or, they have that type of attitude. So you think that they're ruining their long money for their short money?
You can't be a taker. Taking doesn't. There are people who take, and I'm sure it looks like they're on top, but my peace of mind, I'm speaking in a very self-centered, selfish manner, in the sense of I'm only speaking about what I know from me, that my happiness comes from calm. I need calm in my life. And I don't want to have to feel like I'm stepping on someone or, making someone else uncomfortable. I'm sure the truth makes people uncomfortable at times, but I'm okay with that. You see what I'm saying? I'm okay with the truth. That's
the New York in you, because I feel like New Yorkers are very blunt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the truth is what it is, right? And I can be wrong. Of course, you can be wrong. But when it comes to that statement of Russell, like I believe in giving because I think it's my duty to. Being good when we do the give backs. It's like I think it's my duty to put money towards those things where we donate to, women's shelters and homeless shelters and feeding families that are in need. Pandemic, think of it this way. If you felt some pain or a struggle at any point in time, what does the person who's not as well off as we are, what are they feeling? Like, just be a human being. You see what I'm saying? Think about others, because someone thought about us. Nobody got here by themselves. I don't like working with people. Well, not only say like, I will never work with someone who says I, because there is no I. That's bullshit. There's a we. No one got here by themselves. Not me,
man. Amen.
Not Dave, not Vince. None of us got here by ourselves. Somebody participated in some form, in some fashion, for us to be here we are, for our confidence, for our knowledge, for our bravado, whatever it is, it got us to the point where we're believable. And then we worked hard, but someone, our mothers, our fathers, someone instilled something in us to get us here.
One of my favorite sayings, I think you'll like this, is, illness begins with the letter I and wellness begins with we. And I thought that shit was so dope.
I'm rocking with that. I'm all about we, man. And the thing that we have to learn in the taking and giving thing that you brought up is that you have to know what your shortcomings are. And I think we forget that in life. And I know through time, I've figured out there's not a job in my company that I won't or cannot do. But there are jobs that other people clearly can do better.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that was a big moment for me, where it's like, okay, let me go hire people who can do these things.
You got to minimize the ego in those cases. And I've had on a lot of cool people on the pod. I don't know if you know Sean Livingston, the basketball player that had that terrible knee injury. I had him on, and he was talking about, you got to be low to the earth. I remember that, no ego. Yeah. Another guy, Jeff Bass, I don't know if you know him, produced Lose Yourself for Eminem. There's a couple people that came on that was super harping on, forget your ego.
Yeah, you should be able to sweep the floors. If you have a company, you should be able to sweep the floors. I'll go to the storage locker and put stuff in storage. I'll clean, it's not my job, you know what I'm saying? But why not? I'm on sets, yesterday, I had one of my artists, Kirk Knight, with his video shoot. I'm holding the warmer coat. You see what I'm saying? Why not? It's awesome, a small shoot. It's COVID. You know what I mean? I'm making sure his shirt's not, there's no dust in his hair, whatever. Why would it be beyond? You know what I mean? It's I just don't get the concept of wanting to pretend to be regal.
But a lot of people, man. Again, you don't have to name names here, but people in the entertainment space with huge egos too, I'm sure, right? And it's I guess they could see success for a run. Does it come down to is it a happiness issue, an inner happiness with those people, or what?
That's faux. So here's the thing. Happiness is a choice, not a destination.
I like that.
So you're not looking for happiness. You're not searching for it. You choose to be happy. So when you're talking about people who are purchasing things or fronting on people, or I'm with my friends, so I'm happy, like that. That's no. Your happiness is inside of you. You can share it with other people. You can share that positive energy that rings bells. But ego has nothing to do with happiness.
And so the people that do operate that way in the entertainment space, do you make it a point to attempt to avoid those people when at all possible? Because it seems very different than what you're about.
And not to come across as if I have a small group of friends that are in the entertainment space. I know a lot of people in the entertainment space, but friends, yeah, small group. I choose my friendships really, really carefully as I've gotten older. I don't want certain energy in my life. I just don't want it. And I don't want people who argue in my life, or who can't be detailed oriented, or who can't be problem solving oriented. I need people who don't dwell on negative things. I can't have that in my life. I can't.
It's contagious, right? It brings your vibe down. There's no way to, you know what I mean? There's no way to not have that happen. It's like, standing next to somebody with like measles or something. It's like, you're going to get the shit. So I think I learned as I got older too, Corey, you got to really be mindful of who you let in, and you got to make difficult choices sometimes,
Yeah. I'm not going to ever be that dude, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm not going, not at this point in my life. I can say never, say never say never, but I'm never going to be on some negative shit or some because I'm telling you, whether it's just my own way of coping with life, I don't know but I'm convinced, and I've convinced myself, that everything happens to me with reason. Oof. I'm sure of it. So there's nothing negative that is going to come my way per se. It's for me. You see what I'm saying? This is for my journey. So I embrace it all.
I feel like with your path, Corey, man, I feel like you've had some angels on your side, man. I feel like they've been guiding you. I definitely want this to be a takeaway from the podcast from people that are in that place that, let's say, they feel their talent, they know they got something, and it's like taken longer than they would hope. Do you have any advice directly to those people right now?
It's going to come when it's supposed to come. You see, like I remember chasing money, and I developed 2 ulcers, and I was young. I wasn't even 20. I was about to be 21, and I had two bleeding ulcers. Damn. And it was because of stress and me trying my hardest to make $1 million. That was my goal, yo. $1 to $3 million. I was like, can I figure out how to make $1 to $3 million before I'm 21? And I had friends that had made millions, and I was like, I'm going to make $1 million. You know what I mean? Like chasing money and not trying to be the best, manager or creative I could be. And when I stopped chasing the money because I was making myself sick and overthinking things, I'm really analytical. I was just way overthinking it.
Yeah.
As if the number meant that I was actually successful, and it didn't. But just I had fucked myself in the head. Like I was delusional.
Bro, you're pretty young there though, man. Cut yourself a little slack, Corey. I feel like you're being hard on yourself.
But I was delusional. I was delusional about, Dallas, because Dallas Austin was my friend, and Dallas was worth so much money. And I was just like, oh, I could figure this out. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and I didn't understand it, and I made myself sick. But then the crazy thing is when I stopped thinking about the money, no more thought about the money on that level, it came.
There's the takeaway, bro. There's the takeaway.
When I didn't think about the money and I thought about, yo, this is a dope idea. Let's just bring it to light. And I had my little notebook and writing down these ideas. And then the things just fell into place because I was putting the energy where it needed to be. And that's why I've always separated art and commerce. And I think the art has to lead the commerce. Like a creative can make money. Money can't make a creative. It just doesn't work that way.
Bars, Corey. That's great, dude. Yeah. I've managed artists in my career, and we've had like $500,000 for a video shoot and $50,000 for a video shoot, Corey. And guess which video came out better?
For 5,000 because you had to be creative, bro.
Yeah, exactly. I was like,
no
yo.
point. Yeah, like listen, I hate the fact when I try to shoot a video or something and someone's like, it's a great idea, and they're like, oh, this is going to cost 200 grand, and I'm like, you're telling me there's no way we can do this for under 200 grand, and people are like, no, and I'm like, I'm sure we can, because this concept, if I gave it to, John Smyth over here who has no money, told me, here's a camera, here's some talent, let's go make something dope. He's going to come up with something dope because he's like, this is my opportunity.
So I want to wind it down with one last thing, Corey. Again, something else I heard you share out there as well, which is the music business can be kind of a slimy place. If you remember saying that, you put that out there. So in integrity, which, a lot of us are out there, and you're trying to operate in that space, what would be a takeaway for those people that are trying to keep their integrity and do the right thing in a business that has a lot of people who aren't in their integrity, who will stab you in the back in a heartbeat?
Well, the first bit of advice, like one of the first bits of advice I got from a manager when I said I was going to be a manager, I was in Atlanta, and he's an older manager. He was managing some pretty well-to-do clients, and he told me, artists can't handle the truth. You have to find a way to, explain it to them or water it down, something like. And immediately, what stuck in my head was he was asking me to lie. Right? I was like he was asking me to lie, and I was just like, huh. And I thought to myself at that moment after that meeting, wow, if I want this to be my career path, I'm going to be a horrible manager because I'm a horrible liar. Like, you can read it on my face when I'm lying. Like, it's just like, I'm bad. And so I had the revelation, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to tell them the truth and see how it works. Like, I'm just going to be the opposite of that and see what happens. Like, there's got to be people who want to hear the truth. And that's what it is. So I've always been counterculture to whatever the slimy, like greasy bullshit in the industry is. Like, I'm not here stealing from nobody. I want every person that I work with to know everything that I know. I want them to be able to see and understand beyond me. Because if I'm supposed to be a great manager or a great business partner or a great producer, and I leave you in a world where you don't understand or can't fend for yourself, then I sucked at my job, because I'm not promised tomorrow. And so to take it on as in some arrogant way that all the secrets need to stay with me, and if I die, leave that person that I supposedly said I care about to have to go find another version of me without the proper equipment, or to be well equipped to understand it and to discern, like, and through the, who's who and what's what, or even better yet, be able to say, listen, I don't want another Corey in my life. I'm going to now be Corey for my life. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? So I really do tell people what it is. I sit with my artists, I sit with my clients, I sit with my business partners, I sit with my friends, and I speak literally what I'm thinking to them. I tell them who's who. I tell them about relationships. I tell them even things that I think that they do that I don't agree with. I let them know, this is how I think you should walk in the room, or this is how I think you should handle this scenario. Or, you know what, I wouldn't say that, I say these things. People will tell you who they are if you just listen. They're going to let you know who they are and what they're about if
Absolutely.
you are quiet enough just to listen. Human nature it's just that way. Motherfuckers will tell you that they're going to be a robber because that's who they are. They're going to tell you they're sleazy because that's who they are. They're going to tell you they're nice because that's who they are. They're going to say it. There's something in that conversation. If you just listen, they're telling you. So the thing is to pay attention and be prepared for being in business with the people who say who they are.
And I'm going to keep it all the way real. Sometimes artists, let's say, they're so desperate because they want some breakthrough to happen that they will actually deny themselves what their intuition is telling them. You know what I mean? They'll block out. They'll be like, oh, like I noticed that was weird, right? But then they'll block that shit out and rationalize that shit. You know what I mean? Because they want that.
The majority of them do that. Vast majority do, because this industry, for the most part, all of these industries are set up to take from them and not let them really grow. They're looked at as fuel to a machine versus people treating them as, hey, let me build a machine for you that you can also fuel.
Completely. They're viewed as just commerce, that people forget they're people and they're viewed as just commerce. Like they're like a damn office lamp or something. You know what I mean? No, man, these are people with like families and, you know, yeah.
They're looked at as gas to a car instead of saying, hey, let me build you a car that you can gas and drive around and we can own this car together or whatever. They suck them dry to keep this machine going. And then when it's not working, they're like, oh man, it's not working, or they're off to the new fuel. And it's
deuces.
Like,
they're like deuces, right?
They don't care about them. And that part is not something that I do. Like, I really only work with people who I like and care about. I don't have a relationship with anyone that's not personal as well as business. I don't really, as far as my clients and stuff go.
And have you kept it that way from day one?
Yeah.
Dope.
It's something in my DNA that didn't allow me just to work with someone because I saw a check. It was something in my head that said, well, what happens when that check runs out and then this person's in my life? Like, how do I, you know, like, and I don't want to hang out with them. Like, and I don't want to be like, what does that look like when, you know, so-and-so's around you and you never really liked them. You weren't really friends. And then money goes away. Like, I didn't want to be part of that. I felt like I could always make money with my friends, or we could always find ways to be creative because the energy would be right. I live and breathe these guys in a big way.